Where you look and you live. Monday it is, and so that means our segment for the day, it's all about finances, it's all about investments, it's all about money matters. And that is what we will continue with this morning. And we have had a series. We have been talking about, how do we ensure that we are on the right track in as far as, debt-free financial freedom actually is concerned. That is what we have been tackling in our previous two episodes of financial fitness, and we continue with the same because we try to be as exhaustive as we can in as far as addressing various aspects of financial freedom. That journey is concerned. If you remember, last week we were able to look at budgeting and the aspects of budgeting as well. And I know you are now in a better position when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to writing down those things so that you are able, as our guest told us last time, you are able to spy on your money. I loved that term, spying on your money. Sio tu kutumia pesa fua, you don't know where your shilling went, you don't know. Na hii mia, I had 1,000 bob, but you cannot be able to trace where that 1,000 bob went. My friend, in this economy, you can't be able to account for 1,000 bob. Hey, that is serious. And so that is why we are having this conversation, so that we can be able to empower us in as far as money matters are concerned. I told you that we will be having the same today, and today we look at matters to do with debt, savings, and also we will touch on some aspects of investments as well. Yes. And so to help us with our conversation today, it's a guest we had last week. So if you were with us last week, it's a continuation of the same. If you're joining him for the very first time, I can tell you, you need a pen and a paper because you will be able to get lots and lots of financial nuggets to help you, not just this month, but throughout this year. So without further ado, allow me to welcome our guest. Beatrice mentioned resident, financial resident guest, Mr. James Wanyugi. Good morning and karibu sana.
Thank you so much, George and Beatrice,
karibu,
for having me again. I think this is the third week.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and we are doing the baby steps to financial freedom.
Definitely.
These are like a step for anyone. Either you are starting on your first salary,
yes,
or you have been a veteran, maybe many years down the line.
Yeah.
Even in business, sometimes we think it's only for the 9 to 5, but it's also for business people which are the baby steps that we should follow each and every day. So again, my name is James Wanyugi, married. I know my wife is plugged in somewhere,
yes,
and she's watching. And I thank God for the Hope TV for having us and empowering us in matters finances.
Amen.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Karibu, thank you.
And it's a beautiful Monday morning.
It's a beautiful Monday morning.
Very chilly morning.
Very chilly. I love it that way, by the way.
Yeah.
I love it cold and tunachangamka mapema in the week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you for joining us. And definitely today we are on this series.
Yes.
Baby steps to financial freedom. And today, as I was just mentioning that we are killing two birds with one stone.
Yes.
We are going to talk about two very important aspects that need to, in fact, go together.
Yes.
The emergency funds, and then we talk about also the debts. But let us begin with the emergency fund bit.
Yes.
And let's even just start with building the foundation on what is an emergency fund.
Great. Thank you so much for that question, Beatrice. And as we talk about these baby steps, we look at where do I begin. We started with setting goals.
Yes.
And then we talked about we don't begin with the numbers. We start with our priorities, our values. What do we value? And then we came to budgeting. Do we give every shilling a name? And then now today we are talking about emergency fund and debt because they are related actually. And that's why they are quite broad, but we pick both of them actually to try to make this a bit maybe short and sweet. So emergency fund is an account where we create for a rainy day. These and rainy days will always come.
Yes.
And mostly they come with a dent in our pocket. They come in the financial obligation. And when I talk about emergency fund, this is a place where if things come to derail you in your normal working ways. Maybe something has happened and you're not able to go to work on a regular way.
Yeah.
Maybe a travel has come up along the way that you didn't expect. Where do you run to? Instead of going to debt, you run to this account. If maybe there is an emergency on medical matters, maybe a child has fallen sick, maybe a parent, or even, God forbid, yourself, you are not feeling well and you're wondering, maybe I don't have this, even if you have maybe a place maybe to run for a card or something, do I have somewhere that I can run to, and maybe I am able to sort out that bill quick and, as quick as possible. This where an account that helps us actually to be on our feet at all time and not to have those wondering like what happened and where am I going to run to. And maybe for those people who have grown, maybe being, can I call it, where the children who raise themselves in a way, we knew how to sort yourself out. So even in growing up, when we start earning our money, we need to have that account that you run to sort out whatever emergency comes your way. Just as it sounds, it's an emergency fund, it's for emergencies only. And I know even as we go by, we will be able to define what are the emergencies that you go to this account, because it's not an account for everything. Yes.
Yeah, so this is an account that is only dedicated to something that had not been seen.
Yes.
The unforeseen.
Exactly.
That is because you had not budgeted for it when you are giving your money names.
Yes.
You didn't allocate money for that. So that's the importance of having this.
Yes, actually unforeseen events. That's where we run to this account. And not just events, these are events that inconvenience your life. They make your life uncomfortable. And as I said, maybe I'm going ahead of myself. Last weekend, the last 2 weeks, I lost my car key, and it's a keyless. So this is a car that I drive every morning to go to work. And I had one key, it was only one. And these are maybe lack of good planning or whatever it is. And it costed so much maybe to duplicate. And I said, no, let me just carry on this forward. And I remember until last Saturday, because it was misplaced in the house, so I could not go to work normally as usual. So I remember last Saturday realizing even if the month is here, I have somewhere that I can pull some money, get a guy to come and have his way in the car, and maybe even do the computerization and program another key. And for me, I was on my feet again, not because I was to wait for the end of the month, but I had an account to actually pull that money that I used on Saturday, and I had my car running again. So for me, that's an inconvenience. And it comes even to inconvenience my family in movements and all that. And sometimes we think emergency is just for medical, but it's everything that comes and derails your normal daily operations. Yes.
That's interesting that you've mentioned that, because I think sometimes we end up using maybe the money that we've set aside for the month.
Yes.
Yes,
exactly.
For such emergencies, and then we get stuck.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes you may not even have maybe money you have put for the month, or maybe the week was, this Saturday was, today is 27th, it was 26th, right? No, 25th. So you can imagine if you just rely on how much you have put aside from your budget, you will either go to debt. Maybe tell someone, by the way, can you sort me, the key initially was 12,000 just to program a new one. Can you sort me out 12,000 shillings? But instead of doing that, you actually know, instead of inconveniencing my budget, I have somewhere I can run to and get this money to actually make my life smooth and running as normal. Yes.
Let's go, James, to now. How much? Because when it comes to money matters, the mindset that we have up until I listened to you when we began this conversation has always been how much. The figure. For me, it has always been about the figure. The figure up until now, we started this conversation. And maybe someone is watching us today and they are wondering, how much should I set aside? How much do I need to now start with this emergency fund?
Awesome. And we said money is figures we can actually count. So when it comes to how much, it's a very good question, because we actually need to define. So when we come to how much, first of all, we talked about budgeting. We know where our money is coming from. We know our expenses every month. So we know how much do I need in every other month for me to actually be operational and my family to run through the month. So that way you are able to know actually how much emergency fund I have to put aside. And let me say, if I work on 60K per month on my expenses for my family, then I should have 3 to 6 months in an emergency fund. That means if anything happens within 3 months, my family can still run through. I can still pay my rent, I can still pay my groceries, I can still pay the steamer, water, and whatever I need to for 3 to 6 months. Even if I lose work, because work also, emergency fund is also for, we consider losing your employment as an emergency. These are places where you don't inconvenience your family. And by there, I don't know what to do. Can we downgrade tomorrow? You know, you need to have 3 to 6 months of your income. And it can look so big, but I can tell you sometimes we even start as low as 1,000 shillings. And depending on how much you put aside, you remember the 50-30-20 rule. Sometimes the 30% can be too much for someone. And that's where now we realize, can we tighten to actually start creating an emergency fund here? The miscellaneous, there are days that you will not have the miscellaneous part of the budgeting, you have not used that. We always push whichever money we need to put to an emergency fund, we grow it as quick as possible. But the good thing is to look at 3 to 6 months. That is our advice, and that is maybe a general something that people have accepted, or financial advisors advice out there. Some people talk even about a whole year income, expenses, put it on a side where you cannot touch that money until there's an emergency.
Wow. And I'm also thinking of now replacing.
Yes.
Is it necessary to do so? Because now I'm thinking if maybe you drew now that like 12,000.
Yes.
Do you purpose to fill it up, or how do you go about
exactly, it? Beatrice, and I think anytime we withdraw from that account, actually the next step after coming out of that situation is to grow it again to where it was. Actually, replacement, that should happen as soon as I'm back to my feet again. That means if I get my job and I had 3 months out there, when I come back, the first thing is to now continue growing it. But the good thing, the moment we start growing it and you see 2-3 times it has sorted you out, actually it gives a motivation to actually replenish it as quick as you can. And sometimes when we get a lump sum here and there, that's the place where we channel our money until it reaches to that 6 months period, 6 months threshold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You know, I want us to be practical.
Yes.
So that we help people.
Yes.
Because should I say it's a foreign, I don't want to say foreign concept.
Yes.
Where the emergency, we are so much used to the budget, the normal budget.
Yes.
Then you save. But then now here it's a different sort of saving.
Yes.
That you're putting this money aside for a rainy day.
Sure.
So how should I start?
Yes.
And where should I start?
Great. And I think as we talked about goals, you remember we started the baby steps from the goals.
Yes.
And I think one of the goals is actually to have an emergency fund. And I think if someone has written this year's goals, maybe it's a good place to actually adjust. We talked about goals can be readjusted. They can be added. They can be, you can realize by this is more long term. And in emergency fund, there's a place where we actually say, by the I need to have a goal from today to for the next 8 months, I want to grow 60K or 30K, depending on your expenses, again, what we have said. So the best thing is to review your goals and then come back again to budgeting, include it in the 50-30-20 rule. I like we talked about the 50%, it's my needs. Now when I come to my wants, that's where now I keep on squeezing money towards growing emergency fund. But the good thing is like making it a must, like I must grow this fund to a place where it's sustainable, and then there's it's a realistic goal. How much do I need up to a certain point? And maybe for me it's setting goals for it, and then the next thing is allocating a certain amount. But again, I usually encourage people, even as you set a certain amount, whatever you get in excess, maybe you have a side hustle, That is where maybe you get a lump sum that was not planned for from your 9 to 5. These are places where now you channel it. Maybe it's a bonus, you got it somewhere. These are places where now you keep growing in until it reaches to a place where you feel you are comfortable enough to actually say, by the I don't have anxiety into whatever may happen along the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, amazing. And indeed, this is just one of the things that we often need to think about. Because, you know, I'm thinking of even our economy, where we are right now as a country.
Yes.
We have tried to complain about the taxes and about how, you know, bad the economy is. And to be honest, it doesn't seem like much is changing.
Yeah.
So maybe talk to us about now the flip side of it, that if at all the economy is not changing, the taxes are not going down.
Yeah.
You know, is this one of the ways that we can just have
Yes.
as a backup plan? Because many people complain of, I lost my job,
Yes.
I don't have food, I don't have this. But this is someone who was probably earning a very good salary.
Yes.
But all of a sudden things have gone down, and then we go back to blaming the economy.
Yes.
You know, are there ways in which we can ensure that even with the economy as it is right now, we are saving up for a rainy day?
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much. And I even as I teach this in several places that God has provided for me, I usually tell people 80% of money and these baby steps is behavior. 80% behavior, 20% head knowledge, where we are talking about the percentages and numbers, that even if the economy is tough, and things will not get, maybe these are discouraging statements, these things are not going to become better. You never know. I don't know what else will be introduced into taxation. But do I still review back? Because sometimes we talked about the 50%. Do I feel if I cannot increase my salary, can I now work on my expenses?
Yeah.
If I cannot increase my income, can I work on my expenses? And there are people who say, by the way, how can I make things different from the way I've done them last year before I set my goals? If it's to maybe start a side hustle that doesn't compete with your 9 to 5, how am I going to increase on my income? Because things will be tough and this will not be easier at any one time. Actually, someone said this is not the first time. I read Psychology of Money. It's an amazing book I've read so many times. And the guy was saying this is not the hardest times we have ever gotten in the world of history. And he was giving numbers, and each year that the economies dived to the worst, you know, like to the bottom. And he was saying, just plan from the time that we are in. What am I supposed to do? Can I blame the government? They may never remove the deductions and all that. How am I going to survive to make sure that these funds are growing? Because I say that if we are not saving, that is emergency fund, retirement, and I think next week we will look into savings and investments. I'm living above my means. Either the economy is good or bad. If I'm not saving, if I'm not growing my emergency fund, I'm living above my means. What do I need to review? Do I need to move from the place that I live? Do I need, I think last time we talked about, do I leave earlier with a matatu for better fare? Do I carry food to the office? What do I need to actually make sure these funds are growing? Because as I said, rainy days will come. And the issue is, if you look at, and I think we are going to death very soon, there are things that have been advertised so much until it's so normal to live above our means, to always get somewhere to get something that you have not earned for, that you are living into, you are going into extra, you are earning, your expenses are above your earnings. And unfortunately, these are some of the things that we need to address actually to come out of these situations, because the economy will not be better, but your retirement years are coming, either you like it or not, either economy is good or bad. Things are happening every day, and we need to actually take charge of our finances.
If you can help us, James, because also we need that clarity when it comes to, say, someone who has a vehicle, who has a car, and you know that servicing this car is due maybe in a month or in a month's time or 2 months' time. Can that be used? Can the emergency fund be used, or are you supposed to plan beforehand so that you don't incur costs using the emergency fund?
Great. And I think even as we come to the step on where to put it, I also come to a place of, do I have an account where I have my monthly expenses? Like when I service my vehicle, I know I usually do the synthetic oil that is for 10,000 kilometers.
Yes.
So I know when that vehicle, at least I have an idea when in the middle of the year or towards the third quarter, that is when I usually finish my 10,000. So it's not something that is out of the blue.
Yes.
And as we said, if you track your money along the way, there are things that you will start having them automatic in your mind. You know, my car insurance is coming around February.
Yes.
That is automatic. It's not a surprise. Am I putting money aside for that? And for me, servicing, this would come from now another account of my short-term savings. This is not an emergency because it's not something that is unexpected.
No.
It's expected to come. And as I said, if you do a 5,000 kilometers, you know in a year you do twice. So you know approximately when that should come. And as I said, a saving account this where you can run your bank card. This is a place where you can do a mobile money pay. This is a place where when you get your pay, you know a certain month this happens. So we said budgeting every month is different from each other. So when we are budgeting, I know when I checked my mileage for my car service, I realized I have 500 kilometers remaining. So next month, I'm budgeting for that. So for me, that is not an unexpected cost.
No.
It comes from am I budgeting and working towards it? Yes. Yes.
If you can help us also in terms of where do we put this money?
Yes.
Is it in an account that is easily accessible?
Yes.
Or is it in an account that is sort of fixed to deter me from, easily accessing this money? And maybe also you can add, is it in an account whereby, because it's money that is not used every month, that can earn interest?
Yes. No, you read my notes. So it's like you read my notes here. So this is an account where I usually say money market would be the best place to put an emergency fund, because first you can access the money. And I know there are some money markets, like me, I have two. I said I preach what I do. I have two of them. There's one that I know it's for emergencies. And this money, because we are talking about 3 to 6 months, sometimes even 1 year, you may not be able to access this money. Is it also giving you a good return? And when I look at the money markets, the least one maybe currently is offering around 9%. 9% is above the inflation. And if you keep that money in that account for 1 year, your money is also giving you some good returns. But again, if you need that money tomorrow morning, you can still access as much as you want. And that's the good thing with money market. There are some accounts that will give you 10,000 immediately on your M-Pesa or mobile money. But now if you need more than that, it delays your gratification. It like tells you, wait until for the next 12 hours, your money will be channeled in your account, where now you can go with your card or however you withdraw your maybe mobile banking or whatever it is. You're still able to access your money, but on the other hand, your money is making the best it can make in the market. So for me, I usually say this is not your daily account. Separate it and make it in an account that is making you good return. But again, it's also accessible because it's an emergency. I'm able to get this money on the go. Yes.
Wow, this is really powerful and really good.
Thank you.
I think we can take a short break so that when we come back, we can now begin on the debts and the loans as well. That's why I love this particular episode. We are going to be covering so much, and I love the part one of what we have done on emergency funds. So, dear viewers, we'll see you in a bit.
Hope TV presents News on the Go. Every day at 4 p.m. for all the breaking news and news making headlines. Hope TV, look and live.
Thank you for tuning in to Hope TV, your go-to channel for hope, inspiration, education, and wholesome entertainment. At Hope TV, we are committed to knowing God and making Him known through powerful media content. We truly value you and are dedicated to serving you better. For feedback, inquiries, or complaints, reach out via WhatsApp or SMS on 0708 222 323. Email us at customerexperience@hopefm.org. Hope TV, look and live.
Catch Sitam Special.
He's the God who raised up Moses in a palace only to use him in the wilderness, and raised up Joseph in the wilderness only to use him in a palace.
Young person, God is at work within your heart. What does it say? He is at work. It's Him who is at work in you.
If you are going to be successful in the service of God, it calls for sacrifice.
We get to appraise what God is doing, and by His invitation, partner with Him.
Come on, keep moving. He's inspiring you to challenge that which seems impossible.
What He would require of us is to declare, send me, Lord, regardless of our background.
Only on Hope TV.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content, of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
Wake up every morning to an exciting moment of worship. With a powerful inspiration from God's word.
Psalm 84 verse 4 says, "Blessed are those that abide, that dwell in the house of God." The blessing is on those that dwell, those that abide. They have made the house of God their abode.
The kingdom of God is already with us in the present time we are in, but it will also be fully realized at the end of the age. But the kingdom has been prepared by God.
On Hope Devotion every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Only on Hope TV, where you look and live.
All right, we are back, and definitely we are cruising on very, very well. Remember, it's the Baby Steps to Financial Freedom, the series, and today our focus is going to be on three very important things. Actually, we would say two: debt and loans, and then now we have on this other side of the emergency fund that we've been able to demystify in the first half of the show. And if you missed any of it on emergency funds, please go check out on YouTube on Hope TV Kenya. You'll be able to find the live broadcast. Now we are back, and it's time for us to talk about debts and loans.
Yes.
And I think even just starting off, the very first question would be, what's the difference between a good debt and a bad debt?
Great. Yeah, and I think we don't need to define what debt is.
Yes.
What a loan is. And basically we are here to address what are the good loans or good debts or bad debts. And for me, I usually say good debt is any debt that increases your net worth fast and also helps you to become more efficient into a certain area. It could be an area of business, or even when you want to add skill to yourself, because adding value to yourself. So that's a good debt, because you can actually pinpoint what you're achieving, and then at the end of the day, you will be worth more, if I would put that in that way. And at the end of the day, you feel I'm at a better place, maybe at the financial year, or maybe the goals that you have set, you realize, by the way, at the end of my goals, I've taken a debt, and it has helped me to achieve the goals faster, and my net worth has increased. And again, bad debt, this is a place where you take loans that are not defined fast, and also they are more of consumption loans. Maybe it's an upgrade loans, especially on our personal life. They make our life smoother, but at the end of the day, they put a baggage on your shoulders. Maybe that's the difference. One is for net worth, and the other one is for depreciating asset. And I can talk even sometimes, maybe even upgrading cars, sofa set, whatever it is. It's a loan that you are replacing working things with more working things. For me, that's the difference between bad debts and good debts.
Good debts.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Let's look at, and especially in Kenya, we have access to all forms of applications.
Yes.
And that's the mess that we find ourselves in, because you go to a mobile app, there is you can easily access a loan. You can go to a chama easily again, access a loan. But then how can one determine their debt repayment capacity before I take this loan, that indeed I have the capacity to be able to repay this loan?
And that's actually the beginning of everything. If we don't define that, I say debt has been advertised so aggressively. Nowadays, it's so hard to imagine going through the month without a debt. It's hard to imagine going to buy a car without a debt, going to school without a debt. Like nowadays, debt is like so normal and so natural. I realize whenever I go to maybe look for something to listen to, either on social media, YouTube and all that, I realize the first thing, advertisements are there, so many on debt. A conversation strikes, and then, by the way, do you know you can download this and this and you get to debt? So how do we qualify ourselves to know that I have the capacity to come out of debt? And I think I'll go through the few steps that we need to look into. First of all is to calculate your monthly income. And I said through budgeting, we are able to know that. Assess your total income from all sources. That is from your salary, from your business, and whatever it is. Where does my salary come from? And how much is it? And once we do that, we use our net income after taxes to ensure accuracy. Actually, if I earn 50,000 and at the end of the day I get 30,000, now before I take a debt of maybe 500,000, how much is it per month? It is determined by how much I get paid every month. And then the other thing is assess your monthly expenses. Again, we talked about tracking our finances. Do I know how much I use each and every month? It could be plus or minus, as we said, every month can be different. But do you know your monthly expenses? Out of that, you will know before I take a debt, is it going to strain me, or am I going to repay it comfortably? And then I like talking about list all fixed expenses. We talked about the 50%, list all of them again. And again, if you have gone through the baby steps, you already know, by the way, this is what comes to my fixed expenses. This is now what goes to my wants. Maybe you will know how much can I squeeze on that. And then number 3, determine your debt to income ratio. It's called DTI, debt to income ratio. And I think there are some employees who would actually, before they give you a loan that is from the organization, they need to actually realize how much are you getting versus how much do you want to get a loan from? Because there is a percentage they look into, which is really important. And I usually tell people how to calculate that. Just take your total monthly debt payments, divide by your monthly income times 100. You will see the ratio. If the ratio is between 30 to 40%, then if it goes above that, then you should maybe stay away from that loan. It will strain you in a way. And then number 4, evaluate the loan terms, because there are loans that we are given and we don't know their terms. Have you read?
So excited with the figure.
Exactly, especially the mobile app. There are so many, and then there is a small box down there. click, I acknowledge terms and conditions. And we rarely read all those terms. Do we go through every loan, especially over-the-counter loans? Sometimes we are not, they may give us with a big pamphlet to sign at the end. We barely read those terms. What do they mean? And then factor in an emergency fund. Again, we go back to emergency fund. Even if you take a loan, just be sure you are also running your emergency fund, because defaulting alone, if maybe you are going to pick a car in a car yard somewhere. Unfortunately, I think there's an example. There's a time I visited a friend of mine who was looking a car in a repossessed yard. And at some point, the guy who was managing the places we went, he was like, we no longer have enough space to store repossessed units, because and it was so much pain, because you realize what happened along the way. And some of them are top of the range vehicles, some of them are maybe the smallest cars we can get on the streets. What happened along the way? Did we actually consider all these processes? And then the last one, number 6, would be test your budget. Do you know, I talked about if you look at your budget the last 3, 4, 6 months, you will always know, like, I can always most gauge where my finances are. Am I going to add a budget to something that I'm not able maybe to pull? And sometimes things in the head look so different from the things on the paper. When we go on the paper, it looks so different actually. But most of the people, when they go to pick loans, most people, if you ask them by day, they will tell you by day, I didn't do every calculation. When I thought I earn 100K, and I have to pay a car of 30K per month, I thought I'm able to do that, but they didn't realize how much their budget was speaking to them, or they don't totally have a budget. And then number 7 is a plan for unexpected costs. And this is where we factor in potential changes such as medical bills or job losses. You know, like some of the loans that people have taken along the way and ended up being repossessed. It's like someone who picked a business loan, and then along the way things changed along the way. And I think during COVID time, that's maybe the worst time that businesses faced a lot of challenges, because some of them were limited to spaces they could access, maybe supply stuff and all that. So do you factor in changes in the future? If you have not gone through this list, I think the best thing would be to stay away from loans totally. Maybe postpone it to another time. And sometimes it's hard, because sometimes when our mind have decided, I want this loan and I want this, sometimes it's really hard, but when the reality is on the paper, things look a bit different and they make more sense. It becomes more logic rather than reasoning with our emotions.
Because I'm also thinking of the times when somebody may in fact have a good plan to take a loan because they know they want to grow their business or even start a startup business, and especially startups businesses, because now you can take a big loan, but you don't really know how things may go, and then all of a sudden you find yourself, what was in fact a good debt
it becomes
a bad debt. So are there some things that people can put up, or rather just consider, especially for those getting into a startup business, thinking of taking a loan, because most times that is what is at the top of everyone's mind when they're starting something new.
Sure. And I think there's someone, I sat with someone and they told me, James, it sounds like you are do we call them devil's what? Like you poke holes, like whatever you suggest, like you consider the worst thing that can happen. Because unless we look at things that we're not just in money, in so many decisions that we make, I think it's better when we look at what if things don't work the way I have thought them to be. Will I be able to pull out through a situation? Do I have something that I can offset to actually help me move forward or offset this loan that I'm going through? I remember one time, I think it was way back in 2013, I started a business. Along the way, I realized it wasn't working. And someone had gone to the bank with me and said, if this guy doesn't pay his loan, deduct my account. And I think those are the few places where we bank on social capitals, where this guy, and maybe this someone that I've realized maybe they can do anything for me to succeed. We don't come from the same county, leave alone a relative. But these are some of the social capitals where you realize people we talk about, they got your back. And I remember that time when the business didn't work, I had taken a car for the business. I realized, I think 8-9 months, it was breaking even, but it wasn't enough for me to actually repay loans and sustain other things. So I decided to sell the car before it was too late and sustain other things and run with the business in another place. I partnered with another person in the spare part business, motor vehicle spare part business. And for me, that way it gave me a cushion of, do we know when things are not working or knowing the right time to exit? You see, because it's wisdom to actually realize by the way, hii kitu ninakufa nayo and it's not going anywhere. Am I able either to offset something on the side? If you don't have maybe a property or an asset, can I now make a very hard decision before it's too late? And I think sometimes, especially men, we really struggle to, what will people say? Will they see me as a weak person? Like I started something that I didn't finish. For me, it's like deciding this is the right place to actually exit or make a very hard decision to actually downgrade maybe my children to maybe a different school that is cheaper, maybe move to a different estate because it's not entirely into business. It's also into personal finances. Am I able to adjust as quick as possible before now I start having debt or debt start catching up on me? Yes.
Help us, James, in terms of when I'm picking where to take this loan from, the institution. Of course, there are advantages and disadvantages. When you look at all those institutions, there are those who are against bank loans. There are those who are against, all those things. So when I'm considering taking a loan, what are some of the factors that I should consider before taking a loan when it comes to the institution?
And that's a very good question because unfortunately we are now in a world where there are people who actually lend to actually repossess. And unfortunately, that is a reality.
That's their job. They wake up.
Yes, exactly. And I've seen people who have taken cars from places, they come, and then when you're remaining just 100 or 150K to finishing the loan, you default a month and then the car immediately, so quick, you are not even given a warning. And that's where now we come to a place of vetting wherever we are picking our loans. Have these guys, how long have they been in the market? Thank God nowadays, even social media, there are guys complaints are there. Do we do due diligence to actually know people who have actually, you can renegotiate your loans with. There are people who talk against bank loans because of the percentages. What percentage are they offering? That's another consideration. And I usually say, whenever people are saving in circles are for maybe accessing cheaper loans. And I need, again, it's not every circle that would give those 1% or have you done a due diligence to know how much percentage do they offer? And I think anywhere above 10-11% would be, we need to actually rethink again whenever we are qualifying an institution. And I think that is what disqualifies maybe going to the banks. I know there is a time that we had a ceiling where you could not charge anyone above 17%. I think the former governor, he had, you could not charge anyone above 17%, but currently anyone can charge any amount. That ceiling has been removed. Do you look at how much you are being charged from the institution that you are picking the loan? I remember a lady I met recently, and she had a loan of 50K, and out of that she was paying 20% interest. And she had paid for the last 7 months, and she was remaining with 20K. And I was doing the math. Every 20K, she was repaying 7,000 on top, 27,000 shillings. And sometimes, if we don't actually realize how much it is, we continue delaying. They let you delay a bit because it keeps on multiplying. By the time you repay that 50K, you will repay around 130, 140K. It's really it sucks life out of you. Because at the end of the day, you realize people are really struggling, but we struggle because we lack knowledge. I said it's a behavior 80%, 20% head knowledge. Do I apply both? How much is the percentage? What are these guys after? Because they are happy actually for you to delay. Do we vet them? Do we go through all this stuff? And then even circles, do we actually even look at the percentages? Do we look into the people who find, because we are given 3 times most circles, but you are not given 3 times, you are given the other person's money to other people who guarantee. It's not you are given 3 times your savings. No, it's another person's money. And how am I going to approach the issue of protecting other people's money? Because I have their money. How am I going to protect their money? Because they can end up being deducted. Have I qualified the institution again to know how they go about that and the grace periods and all that? I think these are very important questions to ask ourselves before maybe we go for a loan.
Yes. Wow, that's really powerful, because I think mostly when we talk of percentages, we look more into the investments, but then hapa kwa loans, we also go for the one who is giving us a big amount, and most of the time that huge amount also attracts a huge interest. So there's definitely that. I think that's an important aspect to really consider for those who are thinking of taking loans. I think it's also important for us to talk about the toll emotionally it can have on people, because it's exciting to take a loan, money you've not really worked for. Your M-Pesa or your bank account is loaded with a very huge amount you never saw coming. And sometimes we can be very much excited about that, but not think of the implication. But maybe even from your own experience, what kind of emotional turmoil has it caused to the people maybe who have found themselves in compromising situations where they're not able to pay back?
So thank you so much for that question. And I think we may not, these are questions that we cannot actually entirely overlook, because I've realized there's that high when you get the money. And especially money that you haven't worked, labored for this money. You have gotten it, and sometimes it's so easy actually, either in personal or business. Even businesses actually have those highs. Yes, we have a surplus, maybe the few things that have been pending, we can, distribute this money. So I usually say it's good, like we budget for the money, but on the other hand, when the high comes over, like you have used maybe half of the loan out of what you had purpose for, or even what you had purpose for, you realize there is that, I said there's a scripture that talks about the borrower being a slave to the lender. There is that relationship that comes in. You realize, by the way, I owe someone money. And out of that, I remember talking with someone, they told me if they could record their debt, it could go to 3-4 pages. Maybe they have downloaded every app they have downloaded and deleted some of those they could not repay eventually, circles left, right, and center. And you come to a place of it affects every morning that you wake up, even in the middle of the night. Kuna ile kipanga tunasikianga kwa tumbo imepita. Like, it's a big emotional turmoil on ourselves. And we are in a place of emotional, mental health and stuff. Because these are the places where we may admit or not, it takes a toll in our health, because sometimes that anxiety, you are living into a place where I don't know who will come forward. I don't know who. Nowadays, I thank God they don't call the people they used to put as guarantors on the mobile app. I don't know whether they will call the person I put in the mobile app. And eventually, I think actually I reached to a place where I was looking into the stress-related diseases, the diseases that are related to stress. And you could imagine, like, they go so much into, like, even into some hormones we get. They are not actually a cold. It's actually the body actually going through so much strain out of stress, until now it starts to react into very small things it cannot cope with. So for me, either mentally or emotionally, it takes toll on our bodies. And I said last time, if I asked even my parent or my sister, whoever it is, for even that 4,000 or 5,000 shillings, by default, even if they have told me I will repay you at the end of this year, by that relationship, you have their money, it sets you to a place of strange, like whenever you meet, you just have that strange feeling about each other. And these are some that debt creates, either you like it or not. And this causes a toll on our emotions. Now you can imagine when I have 20, 30 loan apps or places that I'm being owed, you can imagine how it can take toll on our emotions. It's really tough, but I think we need to come to a place of realizing the effect is not just on our pocket, but also the effect it has on our mental health and emotional health.
Lots of people tuning in to the show this morning. Thank you. Davis tuned in from Komarok. Thank you. I also see Ambia James Asante for the great info. the idea of keeping my emergency fund, or rather my emergency money in money funds, is brilliant. I've been used to having it in an envelope at home.
Wow.
Asante sana.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. A question here: where should that person struggling with debt do, especially if their mental and emotional wellness is so much affected?
Yeah, and that I think it's going back to what Beatrice has asked right now. We don't realize how much it takes toll on us. And I can tell you, being in this industry for a while, I can tell you it's something that I've seen almost always when someone tells you they are struggling with so many debts. It automatic, like there's something that is not adding up in their health. And sometimes I'm not a doctor actually to say there's a data like directly related to that, but I can't tell you there's that place. But for me, maybe the first step is to, the way we said on the steps, to qualify whether we can take loans. Now we come back to a place of, I've taken them and I'm in this hole. How do I come out of it? And I think especially if someone is on an income, this where now we again, as I repeat, we now try to adjust on our expenses. There will always be something to sacrifice into coming out of debt. There's someone I like calling it gazelle intensity, where if you look at the jungle, I like National Geographic and all stuff. If you look at the gazelles, the way they run for their life, actually I realize it's like 80% the leopards and the jungle stuff, they don't actually succeed. Do we have the gazelle intensity in coming out of debt? It's a life-threatening situation. And if you don't see it that way, we will not take the first action. So I look at into, do you have anything that you can offset? This where like people hold on to an asset saying, I would rather go into debt, but I have an asset I bought some time back. Can you offset an asset to actually be set free? Because that's a burden that we are in. If you don't have an asset, do you now come to review into your budget? Am I living above my means? And if not, what can I adjust to actually help me to come out of this hole? Because someone said the good thing is to realize actually you are in a hole, realizing that the problem, that's the first step. The next step is to, how do I now start tracking my money? Start recording your money. Spy on every shilling that comes your way. Anything that comes from a place that you didn't expect. Channel it into knocking off these debts. And then maybe I'm going ahead of myself. List all your debts from the smallest to the biggest. And then out of that, realize, where do I begin? There are people who begin with the highest interest debt. You knock it off to free enough, as much as money as possible. But there are people who start with a small. Every win you tick off, you, after recording, tafuta kalamu ya red, you just put a line on it. Out of that, you realize, by the way, I'm repaying the minimum I can pay on every debt, but I'm giving all my attention to the smallest. Out of that, once you knock the smallest, now give attention to the second smallest. Out of that, bit by bit, I know you will realize you will come out of it. And I can assure you, people who have been intentional into handling this monster called debt, you will always, by the moment you become aware, this is what I have loan on, this is how much I owe, so and so. Once you knock off maybe 3-4 debts down the line, the motivation will have kicked in. And then along the way, you'll be maybe more motivated to actually look for chances to make more money. Maybe adjust and cut more costs. Maybe there will be sacrifice onto the meals you take. If you have nyama twice a month, you have nyama the next 6 months. Like, say, it's a gazelle intensity. Like, this is something I'm racing for my life, my health, emotions, mental health, and in every other way. But that, I can tell you, it may not seem so hard on us, but when someone is in that hole, they can realize the heat it gives. Yeah, but thank you for that, those people who have asked those questions.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, we know you mentioned that, am I going ahead of myself? And then it was actually a question I was about to actually bring up, but you actually answered it, because there's a movie I was watching, and this guy had a lot of debts, like so many.
Yeah.
And then this lady comes in and is trying to give him advice. And then she now was looking at all these debts and separated them into the ones that are very urgent and the ones that are not so urgent. And in fact, she mentioned something interesting, and maybe you can open our eyes to that, that there were in fact some debts that the more they stay, the better they become. Like the possibility is that they'll go down, they will reduce, but these other ones, the more they stay, the higher they go. So is there actually something like that, whereby some debts actually...
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think that is more into the Western countries. And they talk about when a debt is declared a bad debt, like when an organization realizes where this guy is, they may never repay our money. So what they do, they create an incentive for you actually to one day pay it. You realize instead of growing, they have given me a target. If you actually, the money that you owe us, if you pay up to this the next 8-9 months or the next 3 years, we will actually knock down the interest we had accumulated on your account. I wish and I pray that that will happen one day here. Instead of going to CRB, you have a place where can I have a way? I think there was a shrewd master or a guy in the scripture that was called Utalus Job. So he went and told guys, instead of paying full, can you pay half? And actually the master commended him. I think that is really wise. And I think that's a good idea. Another thing is that place of there are people who use debt consolidation, where now you realize there is a place I can get a very cheap loan. Now you take a loan of the amount you owe everyone. You take that loan, you repay everyone the loans, and then you remain with one cheap loan. The percentage is lower, but you have consolidated everything. And I think that's a dimension most people don't realize, where I can have a 1% reducing balance interest can I take versus an 18% loan or several loans where I can put them together, know how much it's owed, go to them, go to the details, how much am I owed, and then work to, on the other side, you get one loan, and then you offset them, you remain with working with one loan. And I think all these are strategies actually to how can I come out of this. But it's good to be aware that's a possibility, and it's encouraged, especially when you feel it's actually overwhelming in your mind or whatever it is. But I like that. I hope I have somehow answered that. Yes.
Wow, time is not on our side. It has never been on our side. Now 9 a.m. We need to call it. We need to call it a day. And very interesting conversation, and lots of people also showing interest in the same. Donald Juma, wow, I'm getting much out of this financial literacy show. Thanks so much, James, and the entire Hope TV family. Anasema pesa ya loan ni kama pesa unapata when you sell your land. Thank you very much. As we bring it home, James, what would be, your last comments on today's conversation?
Thank you so much. And I think let's first of all go back to the baby steps. I think all this is on the YouTube channel of Hope TV. Let's take every step at a time. Sometimes you may backslide and then realize by the I'm not on track. Feel free to go back again, retrace your tracks, and again, let us make one day at a time. Let's move forward. And I think something that we haven't touched is the bankruptcy. Never apply. Let bankruptcy be the last thing that you can apply for. It will affect so much of your future, like future incomes. And there are companies that will never hire you just because you declared bankruptcy. There are countries that you can get visas and all that. I think it's really important to mention that. But let us keep one day at a time. And I think by the grace of God, once we realize the problem that we are in, I think even sometimes he gives us the grace to actually come out of the hole. Once the willingness is there, once he knows that we are becoming best stewards on whatever he has given to us. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing.
Indeed. I told you, I promised you that you needed a book and a pen because you are to get nuggets of wisdom in as far as financial literacy is concerned. And you can always go back to our YouTube channel for those lessons. We have had 3 amazing episodes touching on the baby steps towards financial freedom. And you can go back from the first lesson to the second and to today's episode as well. I am also learning a lot, becoming better when it comes to money matters and financial plannings as well. So thank you so very much for your company. Thank you so much, James. As always, we are glad that you have accepted our invitation to come and share your wisdom, your knowledge on this very important topic. God willing, we will be having you next week, hopefully, so that we can close on the baby steps towards financial freedom. As always, regards to Madam and your family, and God bless you so very much. May He continue also to enlarge you, even as you continue to teach us. May you also continue to scale those heights and become even bigger in Jesus' name. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a fabulous and a blessed day ahead. My name is George Gishoro.
And my name is Beatrice Nudi, but the challenge is now we've gotten the information. It's time to put it into practice. That's the 80% that we keep insisting on. That yes, we have all this head knowledge, but what really is going to make a difference is if we apply what we are learning. That is what wisdom is all about. So we'll see you guys tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to next week on yet another episode on financial fitness. So see you, and do have yourselves a lovely day.